This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. We start this thing on off with an SMU touchdown. They are in a battle right now. They are lining up for a game-winning field goal. But before all that went down, Reggie Roberson decided to take this one to the crib. 85 yards. Reggie, just one move and erasing angle soon thereafter. Now, unfortunately, we do have to note that Reggie went down in this game about 2 minutes left in the third quarter with a non-contact knee injury is what they're reporting. He was helped off the field, has not returned. But for now, we are just sitting here anticipating what is going to happen. A kick just went through, but I'm not entirely sure if it's good. But what's good regardless? Welcome into the College Football Show once again, presented by AT&T 5G. You like that?
Oh, we're straight to the chaos. Straight to the chaos.
Right into it. That's the only tempo we know. Treavor Scales, Jason Fitz here with you. We are multi-pronged in our approach and responsibility. We are coming to you on Twitter, Facebook Live, ESPN app, and YouTube Live. And we are also responsible for getting you caught up on all the things that have happened, everything that's going down right now, as I've tried to do frantically, and everything that is to come in your primetime matchup. How you feel?
I'm here today to try and keep you calm because everybody should know my guy T. Scales, he is a Georgia dog. Like you are a bulldog through and through.
Man.
So we're just going to check in on you throughout the course of the next hour.
Yes. The Deep South's oldest rivalry is our primetime matchup, and did we have a college kicker example?
We got a kick like for the 18th time. It is good. SMU's now up 30-27. I don't have the sound on. I don't know why it took 28,000 kicks. That's an approximation, but there's about 9 seconds left in that. SMU's pulled up. So let's get to some football.
Let's get right to it, man. We'll start in the Big 12. TCU taking on number 9 Texas. This is our upset of the day. We just witnessed another upset with SMU, but this one earlier on from Texas by TCU was really impressive. Sam Ehlinger hooks up with Malcolm Epps there to go up 29-26. And then, my goodness, Max Duggan on the quarterback draw, saw cover 2 and said, you know what, we're just going to take advantage of both of them safeties headed straight to the sideline. Right down the middle, he puts TCU up. Then, ensuing possession for the Longhorns. After a big gain via a wheel route, down near the goal line goes Keontae Ingram. Gets it down to the 1. Stretches, but not quite there. Him stretching out, trying to get extra yardage, might play into something special and not in no nice way for the Longhorns.
This is why I'm an idiot, because I sat next to you and said, should have just let them score so they could get the ball back. Then one play later, bam, I'm just a moron.
You got egg on your face because the Horned Frogs end up causing a fumble. They recover and will put the game on ice after that. They would take an intentional safety. The game would end in a very weird way, but regardless, TCU has now won 6 of their last 7 meetings against the Texas Longhorns.
All right, we got more action coming now from the SEC, South Carolina and Florida. Florida hosting this one late in the first quarter. We should be used to this. Kyle Trask rolls out, hits Kyle, putting on the pits. 13-yard touchdown. Florida takes the 14-7 lead. Like, these two are absolutely unstoppable. Under 10 to go in the second quarter, same score. Colin Hill completes a pass to Shi Smith for a 4-yard touchdown. South Carolina's got this one tied up. 1:30 left in the first half. Florida, what do you know? Trask to ain't that just the pitch for a touchdown. Gators up 24-14. Recurring theme. Under 8 to go in the third. Same score. Trask this time buries it up. Trent Whittemore in the end zone for a 4-yard touchdown. Florida up 31-14. 5 minutes left in the third. Same score. 3rd and 9. Just shy of midfield. Trask just going nuts. Let's get this. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, okay,
I mean, that counts as a passing touchdown, but let's just admit that Kadarius Toney did all the work. Florida leads 38-14, ends up winning 38-24. Florida's offense looks unstoppable.
Shout out Harry Douglas for saying if you cover Kyle Pitts one-on-one, you deserve to lose. That's exactly what happened there. Pittsburgh taking on NC State, and Kenny Pickett finds wide open Jordan Addison, 75-yard. Where was anybody on defense? I'm not entirely sure.
I do like that dance.
It goes up 7-0 there. And then, beginning of the second quarter, Devin Leary finds Emeka Emezi for the 35-yard score to put the Wolfpack up 10. Fast forward to 9 minutes remaining in the fourth. 3rd and 16. Devin Leary, Kerry Angeline for the 25-yard score, and NC State is up by 1 after the extra point. Under 2 minutes to go. Pickett sneaks it in to put the Panthers back up. So we go back and forth late in this one. Ensuing possession for the Wolfpack. 1st and 10. Leary, one more time to Emezi. again for the go-ahead score. An incredible catch to finish this thing off. Wolfpack win by 1. That Pitt defense still leads all of FBS with 19 total sacks on the year.
Let's head down to Rocky Top. Tennessee taking on Missouri. Beginning of the first quarter, Tennessee ball from the 3-yard line. Chai Chandler pounds it in. Balls go up 7-0. Look at the checkerboard. It just feels so right. If you're from the state of Tennessee, you know what I'm feeling right now. First minute of the second quarter, Tennessee possession. Eric Gray rushes in 20 yards for the touchdown.
Ooh, good move.
Nice little move there,
good
too.
Move.
He's like, you will not get in my way. 14-0. Balls up at the time. Final minute of the second quarter, balls up 14-6 in the red zone. Jarek Ortano dumps it off to Chandler, who weaves his way into the end zone. Vols go on to win 35-12 in honor of my late friend Tharp. I'll say, go Vols this one Saturday. Get to do it again.
That's all right. We check in on another SEC matchup, the 3:30 window. Bama and Texas A&M had an interesting ebb and flow to this one. Bama goes up 14-0. Texas A&M just chimes right back in. We think we got ourselves a ball game. Bama proceeded to put up 34 points to Texas A&M's 3, and we find ourselves with a complete doorsing of the Aggies. 52-24 is your final.
I'm going to give you a couple of notes here.
Yes,
Mac
please.
Jones, the second player in Bama history with multiple passes of 75 yards or more in a game. In a game, not in a season. In
Good
a game.
Lord.
And Jalen Waddle, only player in Alabama history with multiple 85-yard touchdown catches in his career. This is like a total. Remember a few years ago when it was like, when's Bama going to open up? Oh, they open.
Yes.
They open all day.
Yes, and they are also with it. They've got the receiving core and the athletes to kind of spread it around, and we're seeing that come to fruition. We've always known they've had a couple wideouts here and there, but now they're like really just opening up that offense.
Well, let's get in some fun.
Why not?
Little alliteration here. We get
takeaways.
We'll get Trev's takeaways.
Yeah, we'll get into those. And I think the first thing that I want to mention, and we started our show with it after the initial Reggie Roberson touchdown. Can we just let Texas not be back and just let them be good? Because I think that that's an okay thing, an okay status to be at. We look at Sam Ehlinger, and he's performed really well. Like, he's had a great set of games to start things off. We're looking at, I just want to make sure I pull up these stats correctly. He went 17 for 36 for 236 passing yards today with 4 touchdowns. He had the interception, which isn't great. But his 14 passing touchdowns through the first 3 games is the most over a 3-game span within a season in Texas history. And I think that should be celebrated, but within reason, right? We don't need to go vault him into the Heisman conversation. We don't need to make sure that Texas is now on the national stage as a premier program. Let them be good and let them prove it to us.
Yeah, but Texas alumni doesn't like what you just had to say. I mean, we were down there last year for game day and had the whole conversation as Texas back. I really think maybe I was part of that curse because after that conversation, we got a very definitive answer to that question. But with that being said, I mean, when you talk about what it takes to be a great program, do you have the funding? Do you have the recruiting area? Do you have sort of the athletes in that area? Do you have the facilities?
Yes.
Texas has all of those.
Every one
now,
of those boxes checked.
Since 2017, that's Tom Herman's first season in Texas, the Longhorns have 6 losses as an AP-ranked team against unranked opponents. That's the most in FBS. That's inexcusable. Whether you're back or whether you're just really good, it doesn't matter. You got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And why Texas under Tom Herman can't do that is a fair question.
And I think that's exactly why we should just let them be good. Like, let them just be cool. Like, let them be cool. Stay in the cut. Understand where you are in this college football pantheon and just be good with that.
Okay, but we keep using the phrase Texas is just okay, which has got to be such a kick in the no-no places to every day. Like, it's not intentional.
Those initials.
But nobody wants to just accept the fact that, you know, like we were talking about a Tennessee Vols highlight earlier. Everybody's talking about the Vols have won 8 straight against trash opponents. Like, could we just let the Vols be pretty good and let it, like, no, that fan bases don't want that. Fan bases want everything to be either we're amazing or we suck, and there's no in between.
As a Georgia fan, I can honestly just say, look, either be trash or be daggone good. That's all I want in life. Listen, I understand and can empathize with that notion. Now, the other takeaway that I had from this, the SEC East. We saw some pretty good performances today out of that league, and I am hoping to see one later tonight in Georgia. But Florida, solid performance once again offensively. And we had Tennessee have a good showing against Mizzou. So are we having a conversation now where the gap has closed quite a bit between the SEC West and SEC East.
So we were sitting I'd love to pull back the curtains on the real world, right?
Yeah.
We're sitting in the conference room getting ready for the show today, and we're having a conversation about the SEC and the way it looks. And, let's be real. I think Alabama is still clearly the best team in the SEC, although I think Florida is absolutely sniffing there and saying, hey, we want a spot at the podium too. And I believe that if Georgia can get their quarterback situation worked out, they can be there too, which creates sort of an interesting question. Is the East actually at this point now better than the West? I mean, because you got Bama, but Bama clearly reminded us today that there's a moat between Bama and everybody else in the West. I'm looking over on the East and saying at least there's two, I think, great teams.
Right.
And depending on where we land on Tennessee, I mean, right now I think I'd take A&M and Auburn over Tennessee. But Tennessee is growing as a program. It feels like the East may have actually, between their top three, a better side of the conference than the West.
It's top heavy versus depth, right? That's the argument you're going to make. Can you say that the best team can be found in the SEC East? I'm not sure we can make that argument just yet, especially after we've seen the last two SEC championships play out the way that they have. But again, I do think that there's a depth argument to make on that East side of things that we cannot ignore any longer. I think we for far too long just said that the SEC West is where you need to be if you want to be kind of considered in the strongest division in all of college football.
Right, but now I'm out on LSU. I was out before last week. I'm out I'm out at this point because they have so many new pieces in their lineup. I don't think it's a statement to LSU. I think it's just that year. It didn't work out for them. Auburn, and we'll get into the matchup. I've got some strong thoughts on Auburn that we'll talk about later. A&M laid an egg today. So I'm looking over, yes, on the East, they've got Vandy, great helmets, but the rest of it not so great. I realize that the bottom of that conference, that side of that conference, that division is bad. But I keep looking at Florida, Georgia, Tennessee saying, hey, the East looks like it's not only bright right now, but it's bright moving forward. And what we flippantly joked about with the ability of Kyle Trask to put points on the board is real. This Florida team is legit. And I'm starting to look at it saying, man, it's very possible, without having seen the Big Ten yet, but it's very possible that we're going to end up with the Big Ten and the SEC clearly being the leagues that have multiple teams that can contend.
And Dan Mullen have certainly figured it out. This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. Trevor Scales, Jason Fitz here with you. And as we pivot just a little bit to how we are in the midst of a global pandemic, I don't think anybody should forget that dynamic. And with that comes a couple changes in college football.
Yeah, so we like to get you updated every week with games postponed, and this is COVID football in 2020. Obviously, only a couple this week, which is really a statement of good things happening. Rice and Marshall and Troy and South Alabama. So obviously, those are the only postponements that we have so far. So that's a little bit of positive. We also got a little bit of positive in game day this morning as the Pac-12 put out their conference schedule released this morning on game day. This is a little peek at week one. Remember, November 7th. It's a little bit of a later start. And obviously some matchups there. Arizona State, USC, going to be interesting to see what Herm's team looks like, and particularly USC with a quarterback that a lot of people believe in, but a head coach that seems to always be on the hot seat. Interested to see where that plays out. I think
that Oregon-Stanford game, Oregon being the lone ranked team out of the Pac-12 as of now, headlining, opening, hosting Stanford is the biggest matchup that we're looking at in that first slate. And again, a 7-game sprint to the finish line for the Pac-12, hoping to maintain eligibility for the CFP.
And not everything there's going to be easy. Colorado, as we mentioned last week, the county of Boulder immediately put a stop on all athletic events right before the Pac-12 announced they were coming back. So how these teams are going to practice? We got a lot of hoops still to jump through, but at least we have football to look forward to, meaningful football. And reminder for anyone that didn't see the news, significant, that the playoff committee is going to delay an extra week before they release their first rankings. That's important. It means there'll be less weeks of rankings, but it gives them the opportunity to watch more teams, which I think benefits a conference like the Pac-12.
Certainly. I think everybody's trying to get into that money share that you mentioned last weekend, right? What was it, $66 million that each of these Power 5 conferences get just for having an eligibility, a hat to throw into the ring. Not even necessarily qualifying for it, but just having a hat to throw into the ring. And I think that's a large part of what everybody's acting under the guise of as we kind of navigate through this season. It's such a major thing to just be able to say that you were competing for this spot because of the money involved.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And as they show the footage in the past of the College Football Committee, I think their job is more difficult than ever this year. And I know we've talked about it. Des made fun of me a little bit on College Football Live on Friday for even bringing it up. We can play the what-if game all day, but we know that those are going to be our playoffs. January 1st, you'll have the two semifinal games, the national championship January 11th. I just don't know how the committee's going to do their job this year when there's a real shot that you could be judging a team that, may only play 5 games, for example, from one conference versus a team that played 9 from the other. And so it's going to be
none of them having played each other. It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's frankly a mess. And I think we'd be remiss to not recognize that. So it's a part of how we're trying to pull off college football amidst this.
But you and I both have an issue with one key thing that we saw this week that was COVID related, and it comes from Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz. Now, remember, the SEC's playing today, and I know that's what everybody cares about. But let's also be real about, trying to figure out what's going on. We already heard Coach O, a few weeks ago say pretty much everybody on our team has had COVID, which is crazy. Now we hear Eli Drinkwitz come in and say there's no uniform SEC policy for public reporting of COVID-19. His quote, it's kind of a free-for-all. No idea what's going on with other teams week to week, which is important because they're playing each other. So, Treavor, I'm stunned to see a major program head coach come out, use his microphone, and be so transparent about the lack of transparency within their conference.
Right. I think I am shocked at the idea of him coming out and saying, am I shocked at the idea of this being the case? Not whatsoever, because I think we all rushed into this looking for college football to be played. I think we found ourselves, and I've heard this point time and time again from some of the brilliant minds here at ESPN, in that we had more questions for the Pac-12 and Big Ten for not playing football than those that decided to go ahead and play without any sort of plan actually released in the midst of a global pandemic. And I just think that points to the larger picture of what the intentions and the desires and the ramifications. Everybody was playing just for the sake of making sure that economically this thing can go. And I understand that. I want to make sure that everybody hears that I understand that. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that we were out here playing just for the kids. Like, this was much more to do with the money than anything.
Well, or that anything's stable moving forward. That's the one thing, look, and I'm not blind or deaf to the comments that people have made in the media at times. I'm not going to use any names, but about how some of us are rooting against college football, the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Like, my friends make a living because of college football. I want college football to play. You played at Harvard. Not only do you cover college football, you played college football, and you can speak to the fact that at every level they're dealing with these sorts of things.
Without question, man. I had a conversation with an Ivy League football coach in which he said, look, it's just as jumbled up. No one has the regulations placed upon them that we would like to think there are in the event of these kids playing amidst a global pandemic. They are sort of all winging this. And you would at least hope that there were some set of guidelines listed out so that the safety that we all say we're touting as a nation is put front of mind. But that's not the case here. We are seeing different institutions go about it courtesy of the resources that they have available to them. And that's exactly how we end up with outbreaks and different campuses going into different routes of having to cover themselves. And it just all of a sudden puts this microscope on the fact that these individuals are strictly employees for the sake of monetary gain of each of these colleges. And we can no longer act as if that is not the case in every one of these instances.
And if somebody watching, great point, by the way, and if somebody watching needs to understand from a fan voice why you should even care, I would tell you, Tennessee fans, don't you care? I mean, Missouri is a great example of, okay, now if there's no standardization in what's being tested and you put your team on the field with them, now you put your team at risk. You're in a season that you think might be special where you're building forward. All of a sudden, you have no idea what level of risk you put your team at because there's no transparency from team to team or standardization within a conference. I thought the whole reason we went to conference play was to fix these things. So now you have 2 SEC coaches that have spoken out about it, and I think it's going to be a huge lingering problem, and SEC fans are going to be pissed about it if we get to playoff time and suddenly 2 Big Ten teams make it and no SEC team makes it because of a COVID outbreak, and that's a real possibility that they could have prevented with better practices.
There's no question about that. And then it all goes back for me to the conversations that we were having before the season even started about players desiring to have a voice, and we were ready to listen to them when they had the notion of wanting to play in mind. But when it came to the conversation surrounding having a voice in the room, a players' association of some semblance of a players' association, that was where we wanted to silence them. And this sort of action of developing a players' association that allows them to help guide the motives of each of these large institutions into saying, look, if you're going to at least outwardly say you're putting safety at the front of mind, here are the guidelines you need to have and need to keep yourself in check with in order to make sure that safety is actually a priority. And that's where the failing of not having a voice in the room comes into play, because then they operate under their own guises and they are clearly financially motivated.
He's Treavor Scales. I'm Jason Fitz. This is the College Football Show. If you're just tuning in, we are here every single weekend to do this for you. We're going to get you a little bit of what happened over the course of the day. But right now, we're going to flip it forward. We're going to get you a little preview of what's coming tonight.
Georgia-Auburn, one of the most traditional rivalries in all of college football.
No matter what quarterback that we put out there, we're behind 100%.
I'm feeling amazing. How could you hate it? If you on your grind and you relating.
He's a different player right now.
I'm an effective runner, make throws.
I think he's in a real good spot to lead us.
I can't stop this energy. I got big goals. You should follow me.
Bo Nix on one side. I don't know who trotting out that quarterback for the dog, but we gonna find out.
Amen.
Georgia and Auburn, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, going down 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Make sure you log into the app, authenticate your cable provider and all that so you can watch it with us. Down there at Sanford Stadium, a beautiful setting between the hedges. Allison Williams joins us from there.
Hey everyone, Allison Williams here between the hedges. We actually have some students, some fans in this stadium for the Deep South's oldest rivalry. It kicks off tonight, 7:30, Georgia and Auburn on ESPN. It should be a lot of fun. Of course, the Tigers, led by second-year quarterback Bo Nix, looking to avenge last year's loss and perhaps get Auburn their first win in Athens since 2005. We'll see who's at quarterback for the Bulldogs. Likely to be Stetson Bennett. Maybe he played well last week. We'll see if he gets his first career start for the Dogs. Join us in just a little bit on ESPN. Looking forward to it.
Allison, appreciate you. And look, as she mentioned, we don't know who's getting ready to trot out there. Stetson Bennett had a good showing last weekend, kind of got the Dogs back against the Arkansas Razorbacks and ended up getting that double-digit win. But there are so many more questions and answers at that position, even knowing that JT Daniels was cleared medically.
I think that's the biggest thing that we've got to wrap our head around with Georgia, because if you take this roster outside of the quarterback position and you ask me where they rank in the SEC, they have every opportunity to win the entire thing. I think they can be as good as Alabama when it's all said and done. They have such a question mark at the quarterback position that makes it difficult. The other part of it is, to be real, these are quarterbacks that play very different stylistically. And I think that's the most under-talked about portion of this, because they've got to get a groove. And, you know, I was talking before this, and we were talking to Kevin Agandi and Booger and the guys that are on ABC and doing all the college football work. We were talking about how difficult this is, because when you think about it from a Georgia standpoint, you got Stetson Bennett, the most quarterback name of all time, right there that you see on the screen. Absolutely a capable player, but he is very different than even JT Daniels. They are all different stylistically. You go from an athlete to a drop-back passer, and I think that creates real problems for Georgia as they try to get themselves in rhythm to decide what kind of offense they're going to be.
Even gentleman that started last week's matchup in DeJuan Mathis. That's another guy that has a completely different dynamic, has the running capability.
Might be the best of them, by the way. DeJuan might be the best of them, but he's so far out in left field. It's like you went to a hot dog stand to order something, and all of a sudden somebody offers you like cheesecake. You know, I love cheesecake, but it's very different than the hot dogs.
It's not what I anticipated whatsoever. Like this is how to get go. So it's a matter of figuring out what their identity is going to be offensively, and that's when you teed up the question earlier about, like, if we set neutral field right now, Texas A&M against Georgia, who am I picking? I asked, is it later? Because I feel like Georgia's offense is going to find a groove a little bit later. But if you had to put the pressure on me right now, I'm worried about them being able to keep up with the Texas A&M offensively, explosive play-wise. We didn't see many of those. Now, Georgia's defense can hang with just about anybody, right? Kirby Smart has those guys right. And with so many people returning from last year's defense, there's a continuity there that I'm comfortable with leaning on. But offensively, there are always going to be question marks, specifically at that quarterback position that I am concerned with.
You're seeing the guys right now on the field getting ready to play, and the game starts in just a few minutes. And, Treavor, you mentioned that defense. I think the defense is the biggest part of why I'm leaning Georgia in this. We'll get to our picks in a minute. But Bo Nix And I will never forget this. Last year, I was at the first game of Bo Nix's career, right? Game day was out there, standing on the sidelines. Everybody watched Auburn just light up Oregon in one of the more surprising results of the year. And all of a sudden, true freshman Bo Nix became a phenom, right? Everybody's infatuated with him. Well, you flash forward a few weeks later, and all of a sudden, we're at the Auburn-Florida game. And that Florida defense was keyed in. And even when Bo Nix hit the big pass down the field, he threw the ball so poorly the receiver fell down. It cost him points. I watched Bo Nix cost them the game, so I did a little deep dive this week. I'll tell you this. Bo Nix, QBR, his quarterback rating, is 50 points higher against unranked teams than it is against ranked teams. You're talking about around 151 versus 101. That's a massive difference. And the problem is, last week, Bo Nix was also the leading rusher for Auburn. They can't get a running game going. This isn't the week that the running game gets right, which means it falls on Bo Nix's shoulders. And we've seen Bo against great opponents. Bo don't know. It's not good.
Yeah, Bo is not necessarily aware when he goes up against those opponents, right? And I think this defense is going to be the biggest challenge right out the gate. It's tough that it comes in week 2, but you would hope that in his sophomore season, there's a little bit more caretaking of the football, because that was one of the biggest things. As a freshman, the man turned the ball over a little too much for anybody's liking within the Auburn locker room. And so hopefully that's something that he corrects over the course of time. But as you mentioned, it is a matter of us sort of managing expectations with a quarterback like that, understanding that this is a cat that isn't necessarily going to be the guy that throws for 623 yards in an air raid offense, nor is he going to be a solely running threat. But you have to understand that they're going to take advantage. Gus Malzahn is very creative in how he gets his run game going. It incorporates Bo Nix, but it also incorporates the couple of running backs that they're using by committee on that Auburn Tiger offense.
The problem is, last week against Kentucky, that running back by committee did not get going. And if you can't get going against Kentucky, and Kentucky's a better program than it gets credit for, I will say that loud.
Sure.
But this Georgia defense is better than Kentucky's defense. We all understand that. You couldn't get rolling against Kentucky. I have fears about whether or not you're going to get rolling against Georgia here. So it's a little bit of a statement of a bat. Like we always talk about in the NBA, how sometimes matchups matter. It's not the best team. It's like you just get into matchup issues. Man, I think this is a tough matchup for Auburn. So I'll ask you, who do you think has more pressure on them going into this game? Does Auburn need this game more, or does Georgia need this game more?
I would say that is nearly a wash for me because of where each of these teams are in their respective divisions, right? Like Auburn is looking to make a play on the West, even though we saw the performance that we did from Bama today. They'll still get a chance to play them. And if they can pick off Bama in one game, right? Cool. Like you can run into the SEC championship with that. But for Georgia, it's a similar sort of circumstance. You have to now make sure that you are still reigning supreme on the SEC East, because Florida is coming in hot with an offense that is very dynamic. Dan Mullen and Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts have created this sort of attack that is all-encompassing, and you better be ready for it. So when it comes to making sure you handle your business against an Auburn team that isn't necessarily good at the thing that you do exceptionally well in defending the run, you have to make another statement today, and it has to be a strong one.
I also think I pull up the schedule here on my phone, right? When you think about Georgia, what's coming up? They got Auburn now. Then they get Tennessee, who we just said is a little bit better this year than I think people are giving credit. Then they get Bama. And then they get Kentucky, who's improved, and then they get Georgia. So you are talking about a gauntlet here, not to mention the fact that they get Mississippi State later in the season, and that offense is going to be very good. So to me, there's more pressure on Georgia in this game, not just because of this game, but because of what's coming. Like if they want to feast, and look, if Georgia wants to not be Texas, as you said earlier, just, hey, really good. If Georgia wants to compete for a national championship in any level, they have to get this game. So I think there's more pressure on them here.
All right, so let's go into these picks in, knowing all we know about this matchup, the Deep South's oldest rivalry, and just how stressed I am generally when it comes to the Georgia Bulldogs. I just always am stressed. I have low expectations. I'm going to say it's going to be snug for no apparent reason, but I do like to think that my dogs pull out the win.
Okay, so you're picking Georgia.
I am going to do that.
All right, well, I took a look at this. Like I said, I rewatched everything. I read as much as I could because I really want to come in and troll you and just make your life a little difficult since we have to stay 6 feet apart. I can't do it. I think Georgia's going to win in this game, and I think Georgia's going to roll. I think Bo Nix is a liability in this game particularly. Also, I think if Bo Nix has a good game, that moment's going to come back to haunt me
without
on Twitter.
question.
But I think Bo's going to be a liability. That's why they win. Let's add in. We don't have Baby Yoda this week.
We do not.
So instead, we're going to bring in celebrity picker extraordinaire.
Yeah, we got somebody from the control room.
I think Stacey's
and the homie. Yeah, the homie. homie Stacy. Of course, he's just going to troll me because he a Gator fan, and he picked Auburn because, like, he just wanted to troll me.
Stacy, look, Control Room Stacy is taking Auburn. All right, there's going to be some – is there a bet on this game? Can we get a, like –
I don't want that stress. I already got enough stress, so you can take up a bet. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm not.
In the meantime, in between time, let's talk some more football. We can move on in the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G. North Carolina taking on Boston College, an ACC matchup from this afternoon. And there's a conversation to be had about what the ACC is going to look like. But the Tar Heels got to handle business on a week-to-week basis.
Well, they're hosting them. First quarter of possession, Sam Howell gets the ball to Chaffrey Brown for the 24-yard touchdown. UNC goes up 7-0. End of the first quarter, second and goal. Javonte Williams takes the handoff. UNC now up 14-0, looking like the offense we expected. But beginning of the second quarter, third and goal, Boston College. That's 14-7. It got to be a close game. North Carolina pulls out the 26-22 win.
Cincy taking on USF. And South Florida struggled mightily offensively throughout all of this one. Jared Dose puts Cincy up 7-0 early. Into the second quarter now, Cincy with the ball, and Desmond Ritter finds Josh Wild for the 13-yard score. 14-0 Bearcats. Fast forward to just under 5 minutes in the third. Cincy in the red zone once again. Little pop pass over the top. Easy money sniper. Bruno LaBelle on the receiving end of a 3-yard score, and Cincy goes on to win 28-7. Let's move over to the Big 12. Number 17, Oklahoma State taking on Kansas, and the Cowpokes found their offensive groove. And unfortunately, Les Miles, known as the Mad Hatter on defense, was nowhere to be found, it felt like. I don't know what's going on there. 17-0 to lead at that point. Under 10 minutes to go in the half. Tylan Wallace.
I mean, nobody's there. Nobody.
No, 55 yards. About as easy of a 55-yard score as you're going to find. 24-0 Cowboys. 2 minutes left in the first half. We did not leave the second quarter of this highlight because we had no need to watch it after this. Cuba Hubbard, 12-yard score, all OK State. They go on to win 48-7, and Mike Gundy and them have found a little something going offensively.
Oh, they are celebrating there, obviously. All right, let's get over to Memphis-SMU. Shout out to my guys Jason and John on 92.9 ESPN Radio. I talk to them every Monday. Shameless plug. Look at this. You saw it earlier. Oh. Swing and a miss. You will not get in my way. I will press the turbo button. Reggie Robertson Jr. takes it deep there. That was just a huge, huge game for him. Under 4 minutes left to go in the half. Memphis trying to make it a game. Brady White finds his tight end, Sean Dykes, for the 27-yard touchdown. They cut the lead to 24-17. Under 3 to go in the third. White finds Taj Washington for the 5-yard strike. Memphis ties it up at 27-all. This was 27-10 at one point. Memphis comes roaring back, but SMU marches down the field after getting the ball back. 9 seconds to go. Big 43-yard field goal gets them the win, 30-27 for SMU. Memphis not going to be ranked anymore.
We'll wrap things up with Central Arkansas, North Dakota State.
Yep, we got, this is a bit of an interesting story here. Bison up 10-6. Trey Lance takes it up the middle all the way for the 54-yard touchdown run. They pad their lead to 18-6 after successfully converting on the 2-point conversion. Beginning of the fourth, Bison trailing 20-18. Lance once again using his legs. Takes it for 14 yards. Whoop! Touchdown there. Bison go up 25-20. Recurring story here. Under 11 minutes in the fourth, Central Arkansas ball in the red zone. Braylon Smith finds Lujuwan Williams. 11-yard touchdown. The Bears would lead 28-25, but the Bison strike back. They win 39-28. And many of you are just shaking your head right now trying to figure out why in the hell we've got a North Dakota State highlight going.
I just want to say, though, thank goodness for that North Dakota State comeback, because I was worried they were going to have their first winless fall season, and I don't know how long. I don't think they've lost in the fall in I don't know how many years.
Well, we're going to cue you up for Trev's takeaways on this particular story, because for anyone that doesn't know, North Dakota State is playing one game in the fall. They postponed their season. They're playing in the spring. However, their quarterback, we just mentioned there, Trey Lance, he ain't playing in the spring because he's getting ready for the NFL draft. Now, Trev, I'm going to give you a couple stats before I get your thoughts on this. You ready for this? In his one season as a starter for the Bison, he threw 28 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. The only FCS player in the last 25 seasons to do that. He was first in the FCS in touchdown interception ratio, obviously first in passer efficiency, third in yards per attempt. So he's getting that efficiency while he's pushing the ball downfield, and tied for third for touchdowns responsible for. At this point, our draft guys have him ranked as the third best quarterback, I should say, going into next year's draft. And he's opted out. So they played one game right now for him and for the program and for everybody to get that and say, kumbaya, congratulations.
Yay.
Now they're going to play in the spring without him. How do you feel about, as a former player, how do you feel about that?
Dude, I love the idea of just setting up shop for him to get a little good tape and keep it moving. Like, let him go off and get his money in the league under better circumstances, get a little bit of protection, but also making sure that the league is reminded of just how good of a prospect he is. I always worry, though, about the idea of getting more tape, because rarely do you increase your draft stock by playing more games. Inevitably, sometimes there's like a concept of diminishing returns where, like, the less a prospect gets seen and the better performances he has, it becomes like this idea of there's so much potential here if he's doing this in the little times that I've seen him. But as soon as you kind of do it a certain amount of times, there's going to be this flattening out where it's an expectation. And eventually you may end up dipping. So you want to kind of hit that peak when you decide to declare for the draft, and it feels like Trey Lance has done that.
I mean, to your point, didn't we see that a little with Treavor Lawrence last year? Like, the beginning of the season, you would have thought that the sky was falling, and now what do you know?
You're ready to put him in the league.
I mean, it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like he's going to the league, then it's like, well, now he's not good enough, and then he's going to the league again. Like, it's this amazing back and forth. I do think, though, that there was a couple of strategy points for North Dakota State in doing this. One, the amount of attention their program has gotten for the last couple of days because of this decision, they had to know going in. We went there for game day for the big matchup last year, and it was incredible to see that sort of rivalry for them between them and South Dakota. It was incredible. But the other part is they remind everybody that they have the opportunity to be small school version of QBU. I mean, Carson Wentz came out of North Dakota State, right? Now you see Trey Lance, and a reminder to most people, he's going to be a top 10 draft pick. They just got free advertising for their program, for him, for everybody around the country to look at it and say, I want to make the most of my opportunity. And this comes back to something we've talked a lot about in the weirdness of 2020. Coaches now understand that every decision that they're making is going to be reviewed by recruits. How they use their voice, how they use their platform, how they prop these kids up. Like, that is all stuff they're going to have to answer for on living room couches. That wasn't the case 5 years ago. But now when you sit with a player and his mom and dad and you say, okay, here's what we do. What North Dakota State can now look at any quarterback that's thinking of coming there and say is, hey, we will take care of you. We will do whatever it takes to showcase you, and that showcases our program. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and having played at that FCS level, man, look, North Dakota State is legendary. We all know about those jokers, and you better be ready to play. I want to ask one more thing, one more takeaway from that second set of games that we just watched, and it begins with the ACC matchup that we talked about between Boston College and North Carolina. And I'm interested to know, with the performance that we saw from Sam Howell and the Tar Heels today, are we ready to kind of have the discussion about somebody else challenging Clemson? Have we closed the gap at all in the ACC?
This is such a tough question because I really believe in Sam Howell, and I really believe in Mac Brown. And again, college football fanatics will tell you all the time that, you know, rankings, recruiting rankings have as much to do with where your program's headed as anything. And Mac Brown has done a spectacular job recruiting. So I believe that North Carolina is building something. At the same time, I still think that there is such a huge gap between where Clemson is. And so, like, I look at this and say, you know what? It's possible that by the end of the year, North Carolina has put themselves in second best team in the ACC range. I think Sam Howell is special enough, and I think they will have an opportunity. I'm not saying they can upset Notre Dame, but they play Notre Dame. And that is this year going to be their hat-hanging moment, right, where they can say, hey, we have our opportunity. We control our own destiny. So I think they have the opportunity to really stake their claim. I just think they're still a year or two away from being talented as a roster, which unfortunately is going to be difficult for them because in a year or two, they may not have Sam Howell as part of this conversation. They've got this great quarterback. How they maintain the success while they build the two is going to be really difficult.
Sustained recruiting is something that they're going to have to be able to do. And Mac Brown, if anybody is capable of doing that, like setting a standard of recruit that walks into that program. So we'll see how exactly that unfolds. You talk about we talked just a little bit about ranking just within the ACC. I would like to take this discussion with his mind in mind nationwide.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff.
I'm still, like, Caroline created that graphic, and it's still the coolest thing ever. This is my 5, and really, this is our opportunity. We know it's too early in the season, but I'm going to give you my top 5 if I were on the playoff committee. So you see it here in front of you. I got Clemson number 1 because they're Clemson, and they've kicked everybody's butt. Ohio State, because I believe that Ohio State will be that definitive when they come in. It was tough for me. For the first half, I wasn't sure, and then Alabama showed us Alabama. It's hard for me to vote against Alabama, and Nick Saban is 3. But Florida's offensive production has been so incredibly impressive. I put Florida at number 4. And I put Georgia at number 5 because I think they're going to get a big statement win at Auburn. We give you 5 because, frankly, it tells you who my first out is, and that's just trying to get
everybody wants to know.
Right.
Like, why, when am I going to be ticked off? How ticked off am I going to be?
And
like,
you can certainly tweet either of us, especially if you like the rankings at Jason Fitz. If you hate them, at Treavor Scales. It's that simple. Tweet us your thoughts, your 5. But Treavor, any problems with my 5?
No problems necessarily, but I do want to know if we have potential of a group of 5 entering this conversation, knowing that it's just a screwy season.
That's a great question. And if there was ever a year, I think we might get there. I think the Big 12 right now, with the way Texas played, with the lingering taste in all of our mouths of what happened to Oklahoma next year, or last week, next year, yeah. When you factor in the fact that they're still going to have the opportunity to play each other, I think that there's more opportunities to look bad than good for the Big 12. So I can find a path that doesn't put the Big 12 in the playoffs this year. So now you start looking across the board. Well, Clemson to me is a lock. I can't see anybody stopping them. Ohio State has a tough game against Penn State that is not going to be easy for them, but I believe that Ohio State will prove themselves to be the second best team. Alabama, I think, is going to be able to crush everybody. So that leaves that 4th slot open. Now, you could make an argument for a Pac-12 team. I don't think you can this year. So now it becomes 2 SEC teams or, frankly, in my mind, UCF or Cincinnati. UCF and Cincinnati are both teams that have had a lot of love, and they're both teams that I think deserve a lot of love, and I believe Cincinnati is building something that gives them the opportunity. Those 2 teams are going to play each other, and then they're going to have a conference championship game. So a lot of things have to go right, but I think that if Cincinnati and UCF can just absolutely crush everybody in the path, it gives them an opportunity.
That last note is exactly what I was going to hit on, in that they have to be abundantly Cloudo with how good of a performance that they are capable of every single week. They don't have that room for error that we can afford in Oklahoma with an early season loss with a 2 freshman quarterback, right? We're not going to give them that same sort of leeway when it comes down to the stretch of the season. So we'll see if there is a path. But as you mentioned, between Cincy and who was the other team you mentioned?
UCF.
Yes, UCF. They are going to have to both be undefeated by the time they meet in the regular season, and then, they're not going to be able to split that series. Right. You're going to have one team run through both times, and it is so difficult to beat a team twice in one season in the game of football, because what do? You learn from the tape on the week that you win or lose, or from the previous season, and you just improve upon that. Now you have it within 4 weeks to come back and beat this same team. That's going to be daggone near impossible to pull off.
I also think both teams have to look good.
Yes.
You can't have they've got to be tight games, both teams. And then I will make this point. Luke Fickell is the head coach at Cincinnati. People forget that. Luke Fickell was presumed by many people to be the heir apparent at Michigan State. That didn't turn out to be the case. He turned down that job according to multiple reports. So he decided he wanted to stay in Cincinnati. You ain't staying in Cincinnati instead of going to Michigan State unless you believe, especially because Fickell has ties to Michigan State. So he stays in Cincinnati in my mind because he believes that he has built the foundation of something that's only going to propel him to an even higher level. To me, that means Luke Fickell believes he's got playoff caliber players on that roster. And we all know UCF has been a part of this conversation for a long time. The 2 of them tap dancing together, like Bing Crosby needs Danny Kaye here. Like the 2 of them tap dancing together, that's going to help the case to try and get in.
That reference went over so many people's, just right by. That was one of the oldest references you could have ever given.
You know what? Watch like White Christmas or Holiday Inn or in it. Bing Crosby and Danny.
Nope, we good on all that. This is college football
Christmas vacation.
By AT&T 5G, Treavor Scales, and old-ass Jason Fitz. We are getting you caught up on all the things that have happened in Week 5 of college football. And as amazing. We speak, Georgia and Auburn have kicked off over on ESPN. But we're going to celebrate the best of the best from the day in a little something called Holy Cow. And Fitz, moo cow moo. We can get right to it if you down.
I still want to know who took that picture. Yes, this is where we show you a great play, then we give it a rating. Treavor, you're up first.
Yes, Kyle Trask, Florida, taking on South Carolina. And my goodness, Israel Mukwamu with the one-handed diving interception is something to behold. Now, this dude, I don't know if you remember, he ruined my Georgia-South Carolina game for me last season because he had a pick six. He might have had 2 of them in the same game. But this brother can ball, and he has all the athletic ability and height that you want in a corner. I am so impressed by the play, but I am actually a bit of a hater because I'm only giving him an 83 on this.
Because you'll finally admit it was the gloves? He went full Michael Jackson. One glove out. What? No. Okay.
Stop hating.
Okay.
It's not the gloves. I just don't like him because he ruined my Georgia season last year.
Okay. Well, you've set the bar low or high. I don't know how to take it either way. Let's get to the next one. We'll see how we do with this one. North Carolina State's Devin Carter. Speaking of grabs, look at this. Look at this. Go, gadget arm. I want that football. You will give it to me. Oh, look at this again. I mean, it's like me at the ice cream shop. Bam! Free sample.
They throw your ice cream to you like that?
Well, when you ask for a free sample of every single one, eventually they start chucking them. All right, I had to score this one. The Go-Go Gadget arm was impressive. I give it an 80.
I mean,
an 80.
He is on offense. You know, he's expected to do that. It was low-key unnecessary. I can get behind that.
I mean, if you could have caught a ball like that, maybe you wouldn't have been a running back.
Don't do that. Don't do that. That's unfair.
I mean,
that's unfair. I would like to think that because of my stature, I was a running back.
Sure.
You know what? We move it on. Baylor. Terrell Bernard got an interception here. And this one, man, look, ball all over the place. He gets up out of the pass rush, throws the hands up, deflects the pass, kicks it up. It's just going all over the place, and he winds up with an interception. Selling game proper afterwards. I score this one a 77. I think, no sort of advancement of field position. Kind of fell on his lap.
I mean, if he caught it clean the first time, it wouldn't have had to be so miraculous with it. Look, we are bringing all sorts of hate to the Holy Cow this week.
I ain't gonna lie. Yeah,
all right, let's go next to SMU's Reggie Roberson Jr. 70-yard touchdown to the crib. It's not the last time you're going to hear about him in the next. But look, when you look at this, I mean, this is a beautiful throw, beautiful catch. He pressed the turbo button. And he went all the way home, which I appreciate. But I got to give it a score. So, Treavor, I'm going to give it my score here.
Okay, look, but don't underappreciate that amount of speed, please.
56.
What?
All he did was run. Nobody even touched him. He ran.
All he did was ran.
He ran.
All he did was run.
He ran.
When the last time you ran that fast?
I mean,
when the last time you ran?
On Madden? Like,
no. When the last time
the world has seen me run the 40-yard dash. It is not a pretty thing. Look, I get it. It was a beautiful stride. It was nice, but all he did was run.
No.
Nobody even touched him.
No.
He just ran under the ball.
It's a hater.
We should give the quarterback
more
points
to
for that.
At least like the 70s or something.
No, he just ran and caught the ball. It wasn't even a cute route.
Hey, bring back my man Reggie, because I got to score one for him too. And this one, we started the show off with this bad boy. He a little outlet and
swing and a miss.
Now, there were plenty of defenders within his vicinity, and you talking about he just running. Look what just running did. Like, just erased angles. Oh, and my favorite part about this, somebody running fast when their head start bobbing, like just getting to it, because he had only thing he heard while he was running was his mouthpiece rattling against his face mask.
I just love the guy there thought he had the angle. He's like, I got the angle. Wait, he's too fast.
The acceleration game crazy, running like a Mustang.
So what do you give it? Oh my good God!
Because that's his speed rating.
That's the best.
Least,
that's the. Okay, I'll give you that.
At least a 90.
Now he's gonna. Of all the things we've said today that will fire people up, he's gonna be fired up about that speed rating. Like he wants a 99 at this point. Like I'll give you a 99 for the speed, just a 56 for the catch.
All right, we done celebrated the best of the best. Let's get these jokes off, bruh. Give it to me. We got to get into just clowning some people that had some unfortunate events occur to them, and our only reaction to having seen those events is bruh. We gonna start this thing right on off. Alex Sinkfield from West Virginia back to receive a punt.
So far, so good. All normal.
Standard play until his teammate had to go all Jason Fitz and run into him and give him a hug when it's not appropriate.
I mean, when you want to hug, look, he's just like, hug me, love me. That's all he's saying.
That's not okay.
Oh.
I done told you that too.
Oh, that's so 2019. I miss those moments. Bruh, I miss unnecessarily having people run for me in the halls because they know I want a long hug. Only on the college football.
That's Cliff. Here, Mac. Looks like he's about to snag this 2-point conversion, but the ref decided to step in front and get a little PBU. Now, granted, on the replay, I noticed he probably should have just caught it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Probably should have just caught it. But I'm still blaming the ref because evidently the wide receiver heard footsteps and thought he was about to get his clock cleaned by that ref standing back there.
I love the graphic, by the way. It says, Sugar, we're going down. Little Fall Out Boy reference.
That's good.
Fun fact, 7 years ago yesterday, it came up on my memories.
Yeah?
Played a show with Fall Out Boy.
What's there we go. Slight flex from Jason.
No, that's a big flex. Like, I'm throwing. I mean,
okay, fair.
Bam, I'm just throwing names all over the place.
No,
7
yes.
years ago.
Yes,
Sugar,
please.
we're going down. All right, next play.
Abilene Christian taking on Army. And listen, when you start to wave bye-bye, Lionel McConnell, you better be gone. If you're wearing number 1 and you decide to pull off that Sally, you better be gone. Unfortunately, he was not. Got walked down by an Army defender. So he gonna get roasted in the film session time and time again. Matter of fact, that's one of those plays that the coach starts the film session with. It says, hey, fellas, what we not gonna do is just, and hits play.
But the bro here is, hey, your speed rating, not a 90,
Far
all right? And as a little guy that is known to talk a lot of trash, the one thing you got to know is place and time. Like, if I'm going up to somebody twice my size to talk, for example, I pre-plan my exit. Like, how am I getting out? Who am I getting behind? Like, these are all things. You can't turn around and do any talking until you know that you're done. I mean, that's trash talking 101.
Without question. Be sure in what you're talking trash about. Would you believe that this was not the only time that it happened?
No, show it to me. Show it to me.
Kentucky. I see Rose. You thought you was out of here too. And for the most part, it looked like it was. Threw up the deuce, but forgot that another defender was out there chasing him, got walked down. And look, the frustration celebration at the end, you don't get to do that when you got walked down. Like, you don't get to act like, I was so close, because
does he slow down a little bit here? Is he out of gas?
Well, no, he just threw up the deuces because, like, he thought he was cruising. He saw, and my thing is, if there's a teachable moment out of all of this, if it's not to not throw up the deuces, find a jumbotron, fellas. Make sure you understand exactly where defenders are so that you can be sure about your celebration before you do it.
I mean, did we not all just see this in the NFL last weekend?
Yes.
Like DK Metcalf, that was a huge. Oh, okay. Just making sure we're all watching the same games.
All of that is true. Florida, Stacey, you getting jokes off, making me cringe with your picks. Hold this. Actually, no, it's actually really positive for Florida. I forgot about that. Yeah, South Carolina just dropping the rock and evidently forgetting how to tackle. Daggone.
I mean, Trev, what, you got anything you want to say about this?
No, I don't have nothing I want to say.
I mean, look at this. Whoop.
I'm
Swing
just
time.
highly
1, 2,
upset.
3, 4, 5.
Highly upset.
5 people.
No,
Five. And he even had time to do the.
Are we giving more love to the wideout, or are we saying that South Carolina figure it out?
Well, I'm just saying that speed. Like I keep telling you, man, you got to respect speed.
That's the opposite of what you've been saying the whole show.
By the way, the Georgia-Auburn game tied at 0 right now. We should note that right now that's under review for targeting. There's a targeting call against Auburn, so we'll get you information as soon as we can get it. But it is under review right now. It looks like it could result in an ejection, as targeting does. So we'll try and get that information as soon as we can.
Yeah, and as we kind of tune into that game, Trevor Scales, Jason Fitz here with you on the College Football Show, presented by AT&T 5G. We got some stuff we tossing to, huh? I'm just asking for no more heartbreak. I'm not even asking for you to win everything. But just please keep my conscience in mind, because your boy can't take no more. I have been a fan of everything in Atlanta. That's terrible. Terrible life decision on my part. I know that. But I don't need you addressing the fact that I've made terrible decisions. Just don't hurt me. If you get close to winning, just go ahead and finish the drill. If you know you ain't about to win, just lose early.
I got to check in on you, Trevor.
Okay.
All right, a little worried about you. All right. As you just mentioned, you are an Atlanta guy through and through, which means that your favorite NFL team has had a rough few weeks.
Yeah.
your favorite college football team had a rough beginning last week.
Yeah. Stressing me out.
Big game now. You okay? How we
No,
doing?
I'm never okay. What you mean? What you mean? Like I despise the fact that I decided to root for this mess because I should not have invested myself emotionally because it has done nothing but brought me heartbreak, disappointment, and just overall sadness. I don't know why I did this to myself, but here I am, right? Like once again, back at the trough, looking to get a fix from Georgia football and hoping that they can help me out emotionally. This is not funny. I don't know why we're doing this.
Is there a spot
This is not funny at all.
Like,
it's not funny at all.
I mean, the Falcons pictures being up here. Like, is there a spot for you where you're looking for a new team? Because, like, hey, silver and black is pretty close to red and black if you want to come over to the Raiders.
Funny you should mention that because your boy just said, like, I'm not going to emotionally involve myself anymore. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go full Rob Lowe in the official NFL logo hat. And not even I'm not worried about it no more. I'm rooting for NFL football. I'm not rooting for nothing.
So you see Matt Ryan in it. What's that do to your soul?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I'm done. I'm off that narcotic. I'm not doing that no more.
I feel like we could film this process of you like quitting the Falcons, and
Yes.
it would look a lot like the TV show Shameless. I don't know if you ever watched it, but sort of a dumpster fire. Like I feel like that's where you're gonna go every time the team gets.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
So,
I think that's a fair assessment. I can't even front.
I think tonight's game though is an opportunity for a little bit of hope.
No.
Okay.
No. I don't use the word hope in my vocabulary or anything that's associated to my fandom because you know what hope brings me? Despair. I don't need that.
Well, you know what? I would usually offer you a hug, but I can't do that right now. What I will offer you is a chance to take a little look here. We're going to do a live look-in.
Oh, yeah.
As Georgia has the ball. Again, I want to get everybody updated. Auburn's Smoke Monday was kicked out of the game for targeting while covering a punt. He has been ejected. So Georgia has the ball here, 3rd and 10. You can see it from about the 32-yard line. We're getting you caught up on this game. Obviously, all eyes were going to be on what offenses look like, and that's a nice little throw there.
Yes, Stetson Bennett appears to have gotten the start here and off to a solid one, right? Like just a comfort level in the offense is what I'm hoping to see at some point.
And Stetson Bennett, by the way, is sort of if we had Goldilocks here, and you had the porridge too hot and too cold, like you've got two quarterbacks that are very different. Stetson Bennett is sort of in the middle. He's the third guy that's kind of a tweener between the two that they've got.
That mobility that we just saw there, right? Like noticing where the pressure was coming from, flipping the hips. That's the drill, right? Like rotating out and making sure you stay safe amidst some pocket pressure. So we'll see what they can do with that drive, right? Like they're trying to make a little something shake as they make a drive towards the end zone there between the hedges.
Well, and this is also a reminder, you talk about getting away from that defensive line. Let's remember that Auburn has had basically, I think even the water boy was drafted this year from Auburn's defensive line. So they got some studs that absolutely, but that's part of what they replenish really well. So, this is modern SEC football. And as much as people, my age, as you like to call me, an old man, but as much as people my age and older will continue to tell you that they believe SEC football is won by great defense. And this morning on Countdown to Game Day, which you can watch here, obviously Champ Bailey we had on, and Champ said, no, it's all about defense. I don't know that that's true anymore in today's SEC. So it's going to take points. Speaking of points, by the way, Mississippi State has none yet against Arkansas. That might be the biggest upset of the day. And LSU is tied right now, early in the game, against Vandy. This one, I mean, if there's anybody in the SEC that LSU has to beat, Vandy has to be near the top of that list, right?
Yeah, without question. You would hope that they would have one of those bounce-back efforts, right? Like getting embarrassed by Mississippi State in a host of regards. You would hope that they kind of get back and make a statement against Vandy. I do want to note with that Mississippi State game, right, like Arkansas got out to the same fast start against Georgia, and then we had the Felipe Franks experience where there were turnovers, there were miscues, and Georgia finally settled in. You will see if the Mississippi State air raid offense can get back going, but there's still some time to tell in a lot of these games. So, again, just kind of make sure you log in, authenticate your cable provider so you can watch these games, some of these games with us.
Also, big note there, Oklahoma 3-0 over Iowa State. I don't know that there's been a more disappointing team for the Big 12 than Iowa State, as crazy as that sounds. Like they were supposed to be better coming in. They haven't been. Oklahoma needs that big rebound also to get their season back on track.
Yes, and again, like we're talking about too, within the Big 12 specifically, making overall conference look good. I don't know what benefits more, like it being a close game for Oklahoma or them coming out and trouncing Iowa State, who was supposedly at near the top of the pack, but then gets washed by an Oklahoma team that lost last week to a team that they shouldn't.
And this is going to be a weekly conversation because the thing of it is, the way the playoff committee has done it this year by not telling us how many games need to be played, they've left everything open to the eye test.
Yeah.
So now trying to figure out what the eye test means for you versus what the eye test means for me, that's a very subjective and difficult thing. And it allows the committee to essentially say, well, just because. And that's an acceptable answer. And I understand that the committee is comprised of 13 people that love it, take that responsibility seriously. But that's the biggest concern. If you're Oklahoma, if you're Texas, based on the last couple of weeks, you've cracked that door.
I think the biggest thing for me with assessing the committee's picks for and rankings is that the subjective nature is exactly what we wanted, right? Like we wanted it to be a human element because we got frustrated with the BCS.
That's fair.
But then we wanted to apply a formulaic element to human nature, and that's where we're at.
All right, we're going to take you back to the game. I'm hopeful we can watch a touchdown happen with Treavor Scales with me. It's the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G.
Get there! Yeah, no, we going full fan. If y'all gonna put on the game while I'm sitting here on TV,
I don't blame you one bit. I mean,
we're not gonna hold back.
My entire neighborhood learned new words last week during the Raiders game, so I get it. Right? And that's modern offense at its best there.
Right. I mean, like, look, the tempo has its advantages, but I think that it's within reason. And as you get closer to the goal line, any offensive coordinator will tell you, it gets a lot more difficult because you don't have the benefit of space in order to get defenders up out of the way for what schemes you want to run. So when you're getting down there and running a 3-by-1 and you're trying to force a quick screen in there, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get defenders up out of the paint so that you can run it.
Well, and there's also a little bit of a read and recognition with the quarterback there. Mm-hmm. He's got to figure out if that's really the best play for him, you know, and in the speed they're running, I don't know that they've had time for this. It's a college football show, by the way. Treavor Scales, Jason Fitz. We're going over
Texas
a little bit
route.
because we want to get this. We want to get this. All right, we're getting down to the 2-yard line. If you're just tuning in, we don't always do this, but we do get you a little sneak into the game. We get you caught up on everything that's happened. We get the place setting for what's going to happen tonight. It's one of 3 shows you can check out digitally for college football.
That's a good stone.
Every single Saturday. The slate starts with Countdown to Game Day, which you can check out 8:30 a.m. Eastern on Twitter. Then you've got here from 7 to 8, and then you guys do the wrap-up show at 11:30.
That is correct. Christine Williamson, Gary Streisky, and myself there 11 to 11:30 Eastern. We have a little fun with it, right? Like we'll make sure you're well aware of what happened in the day of college football, but understand that we are there to kind of entertain you and close out your night just for the sake of understanding. Y'all are all tired from watching all this college football.
You're going to be tired from watching this game. We're going over because it's worth it. It's worth it. Stick in here. Treavor Scales.
Get to. We'll start this thing off right.
Oh, man.
Zamir White to the crib. 7, hopefully. Nothing early. I can't even assume 7. This is how cynical I am as a fan. I can't even say 7 nothing. I'm like, let me hold off on that.
Here's what I can tell you. If you've had some fun, come back, check us out every single week. It's authenticated in the app now. You can watch the game. You don't have to go anywhere, or you can tune in right now to watch the game. Absolutely. We've appreciated you guys hanging out. He's Treavor Scales. I'm Jason Fitz. For everybody else behind the scenes that makes this show happen, thanks for hanging out with us.
This is the College Football Show presented by AT&T 5G.